Greetings, ladies and gents, and welcome to this latest narration of the web series The Human from a Dungeon. If you're new to the series, there is a playlist listed down below in the description, and as always, I hope that you enjoy. Chapter 32 Nash Altar, Adventurer Level 9, Orc Nulevan. The exploding cart caught me by surprise. Thankfully, I had a quick recovery active because of the bandits. A new skill I picked up while training with Nick, and it does exactly as advertised. I was the first one up, my ears ringing and head swimming. I shook the cobwebs out of my skull and checked myself over to make sure that I was in one piece. Lucky, no shrapnel wounds. As I grabbed my sword up off the ground and sheathed them, I looked around. Everyone else was on the ground. Duke was just behind where I'd landed, and I ran over to him first. "Duke!" I shouted as I shook him. "Wake up, brother! Tell me you're okay." He didn't stir. Crap. I tried to get his robe off so I could check him for injuries. I wasn't able to get it off, but I was able to get it open. He was wearing a tunic with shorts underneath, blood on his legs. I ripped his tunic apart to see if his chest was fine. No blood, and it was rising and falling to indicate that he was breathing. I tore a strip of his tunic and bandaged a small wound on his leg. I glanced up and saw Imlaw trying and failing to help Nick stand. As I straightened up to go check on him, I heard someone behind me groaning. Instinctively, I drew my swords. My axe, being as cumbersome as it is, had been left in the cart. I spun and barely managed to block the first bandit strike, and the second bandit was standing up. I'd heard the second bandit, which had ruined the first sneak attack. The other 5 were in no condition to fight. The second bandit took a moment to get his bearings as I took a slash to the first one, which he dodged. He wasn't able to dodge the follow-up kick, though. He hit the ground and rolled backwards, and I followed and slashed with both swords. The bandit dodged backwards again, which is fine by me. I wanted to distance him from York. The other bandit saw our conflict and lunged at me with his spear. I parried it and blocked another strike from the first bandit. "Duke!" Nick shouted from behind me. "York's out cold," I replied, swinging at the first orc again. I hope he's just out cold. A coma would be terrible this far from town. I parried the spear again and rushed the bandit with the sword. He managed to block the strike to his throat, but wasn't able to avoid the slash across his gut. It went deep, and he fell to the ground holding his injury. I shut out his cries of pain as I turned my attention to the one with the spear. There's no need to worry about him getting back up. I know a fatal blow when I see it. The bandit with the spear also knew a fatal blow by sight, and became more cautious. I darted forward, and he leapt back while jabbing at me with the spear. If he were any more skilled with his spear, I'd be in trouble. However, after the 4th time he jumped back and trying to poke me, I was starting to get annoyed. "Go to hell, you bastard," the bandit growled at me. "Lead the way," I replied, slashing to the tip of the spear. The bandit looked at his spear dumbfounded, and I took advantage of this to use another skill I had unlocked. I activated Thrusting Throw, and my sword leapt from my hand and plunged itself into the bandit's chest. His gaze moved from his spear to the hilt that was now attached to his chest, and then to me as he crumpled under the weight of death. This particular skill had come to me after continuously throwing Nick's training weapon back to him. I don't think he even realized that I activated the skill. He probably believes I'm just good at throwing training swords directly at his heart. I walked over to the bandit and pulled my sword from the fleshy sheath. I took this opportunity to examine the remains of the explosion and the other 5 bandits, which was a mistake. Even with all the death and destruction I'd seen before, the way their bodies were torn apart and contorted beyond recognition made my stomach turn. I turned away and closed my eyes, trying to think of anything else so that it wouldn't stick with me. Food's a bad thought. No, let's think about relaxing at the training field, staring up at the sky, watching the clouds go by. Nima, by my side, giggling at something I said. Not even a joke, but she found it funny regardless. A good memory to blot out the bad. "Help!" an unfamiliar voice called out from behind me. I turned to look at the dwarf we'd run past earlier, now kneeling over Nick. Imlaw was also on the ground. I wiped my swords on the spear bandit's pants and kicked York's shoe as I passed, but he didn't even stir. Gods, He was out for the count. I hope he's all right. What's going on? I asked the dwarf as I approached. The gnome was hit and bleeding out, and the human. Human? What? He's a human. That doesn't matter, though. Focus up. What happened? I guess he figured out how to use healing magic. He used it on the gnome and then passed out. He's wounded pretty bad. Looks like he was hit by a bunch of shrapnel, the dwarf explained. I knelt and checked the boy's wounds, and the dwarf was right. He had a hole clean through his right hand, another hole in his shoulder, 2 in his left leg and 1 in his right leg. I couldn't find any holes in his cuirass, though. I breathed a sigh of relief. You'll be fine, I said. How can you say that? If he's lost enough blood to pass out, then he definitely won't be fine. We're going to do something. Look at the ground. There isn't enough blood there to cause someone his size to pass out, he explained. Plus our healer is down for the count. Ain't a damn thing that we could do even if we wanted to. We could bandage his wounds at least, the dwarf muttered. No. Well, that's a bad idea. I'll show you why, I grinned. Hey, Ten, you there? Yes, Ten said with Nick's voice. The dwarf leapt back from the boy with startling speed. He didn't get far before he stumbled and landed on his ass, staring at Nick with an open-mouthed frown. Nick, however, didn't move at all. After a moment, the dwarf turned to look at me again. Ten is a robot that lives in Nick's head and helps heal him, I explained. I'm not a robot, Ten said. Close enough. Anyway, he's got foreign objects of some kind in his wounds, doesn't he? I asked. Yes. And it would be a bad idea to bandage those wounds while you try to heal them, right? Correct. If you bandage the wounds, it would prevent me from removing the shrapnel. I would have to heal around it, and I would then have to force the shrapnel out of the body through the skin, which would take an unknowingly long time without surgical assistance. There you have it, I said to the dwarf. All we can do is wait for our injured to wake up. Nick healed Imra, Ten's healing Nick, and York doesn't have any visible injuries. He's probably just one out of a concussion, though. I see, the dwarf said, starting to shake off the shock. Anyways, I'm Nash. What's your name? I'm Rev. Rend Marfix. Pleasure to meet you. Though I wish you were under better circumstances. Yeah, me too, I chuckled darkly. So, what were you doing out here, Renv? My uncle owns one of the largest suppliers in Balasar, and I was transporting mining equipment to Kakena for him. Shovels, picks, buckets, and some bank clay. Recipe C, he explained. The bandits weren't interested in the gear, but were convinced they could get a good ransom out of me. Well, that explains the explosion. Well, that sounds like a pretty valuable cargo. Why didn't you have guards? I asked. I did, 3 of them. The bandits killed them and tossed their bodies in the cart. His expression went dark. They were friends of mine. We grew up together, but they became adventurers, and I became a businessman. Now they're dead. I'm sorry for your loss, I said gently. I know how odd that is. I've lost some friends recently. Nick suddenly sat up as if he were in the middle of a fight, and then winced at the pain his various injuries caused. He looked around in an odd way, as if glad his eyes were working. He looked at Renv, then at me, and then closed his eyes and took a deep breath. Are you all right? I asked. Yeah, I'll be okay. He looked at Renv again. Never mind, I'm fine. Just used all my magic. How's Imla? He's out, but it looks all right. York's out too. He's not up yet. Wait, how long was I out? Just a few minutes, Renv said. I'm Renv, by the way. Didn't get a chance to make introductions with all the excitement. I'm Nick, the boy replied. Nice to meet you. They discussed how we got to be where we are, but I was distracted by York. He'd been out for a while. He'd probably taken a knock to the head, but I hadn't seen any blood. I wondered about trying to load York and Imla into the cart, but the Hanasses looked angsty. The explosion had probably put them on edge, and a kick from one of them would be bad no matter who it connected with. Nick, has your magic recharged at all? I asked. Let me check. He closed his eyes and concentrated for a moment. Yes, I've got about a quarter of it back. I want you to heal York. Can you move? Not on my own. Ten says my legs are fractured. All right. Nick looked up at me questioningly as I stood and brushed the dirt off my knee. I grinned as I leaned down, placed my arms beneath his armpits, and lifted him up from the ground. He protested a bit as I carried him over to York's still unconscious form, and winced as I set him down. "Heal him," I said. "What's wrong with him?" Nick asked. "I don't know. Probably took a knock to head. Just cast the spell and let you figure it out." "I'm pretty sure that's not how it works." "I'm pretty sure that it is. You think healers have time to figure out what's wrong with a person before they heal them?" I asked angrily. "But fine," he relented. Run them to sack." A faint light glowed around Nick's hands as the spell went to work on York. I crossed my arms in satisfaction, but raised an eyebrow as I noticed the light didn't fade like it normally would. The spell was still going. When either York or other healers cast a healing spell, the light would only last for about a second. Before I could say anything, York's eyes shot open and he sat up. Nick let his arms drop to his sides and York looked around, trying to figure out what was going on. Finally, my brother looked at us and tilted his head questioningly. "You got knocked out by an explosion from the flaming cart," I explained. "Then I healed you," Nick added with a grin. "You healed me?" York asked with a shocked expression. Well, congratulations on unlocking your first healing spell. Which was it?" "Minor heal," Nick said. Good. That's the first level of healing," York nodded, rubbing the back of his head as if it was sore. "Nice place to start from. Is everyone okay?" "I'm fine. Nick's got some new holes and Imlar's unconscious," I explained. "That dwarf we rescued, Rev, is also uninjured." "I see. Where'd the flaming cart go?" "Already told you. That's what blew up. It had a bang clay in it." "Right, that makes sense," York said as he carefully stood up. "Shall we go check on Imlar then?" "I can't walk. I've got a fracture in my leg," Nick explained. "Not a problem," I said with a grin as I picked him up again. York and I walked over to Imlar as my new baggage protested again. The protest got a little more colourful this time, so I was less gentle when I set him down. Nick glared at me angrily as York knelt to check on the gnome. "Will he be okay?" Rev asked. York expressed as he rubbed his chin thoughtfully. "What happened to him?" "A piece of shrapnel went through his gut, but he didn't notice it at first. He passed out as he checked on me," Nick explained. "Thankfully, it went clean through, so I cast minor heal on him, but he didn't wake up. Then I ended up passing out from using all my mana." York looked at Nick with a confused expression. "What else did you use magic on?" he asked. "Nothing," Nick answered. "But you have a ton of magic. Minor heal wouldn't even come close to using all of it," York said. "I used the spell until I ran out of magic," Nick explained. "How many times did you cast it?" As York asked that, I made a connection between what Nick was saying and what York was asking, and the strange length of time I'd seen from Nick's healing spell. I couldn't help but laugh, which made everyone look at me. "When he cast minor healing, it seemed to last longer than when you cast it," I explained. "I think he's able to continue the spell with just one cast." "Is that so?" York turned back to Nick. "I wonder what sort of effect that has on healing." "I don't know much about magic," Ren interrupted, "but it is gnome going to be okay. He's been out for a while." Right, he must have lost a bit of blood, but I can wake him up," York nodded. York then slapped Imlar across the face, the sound of which stunned the rest of us into silence. It seemed to echo around us. Nick opened his mouth, but Imlar mumbled something and his eyes fluttered open. He looked at each of us and sat up, holding the side of his face. "What happened?" he asked. "Come on, get up," York smiled down at the gnome. "It's time to get back on the road." End of chapter. I would just like to thank the T5 supporters: Bushmaster 117, Casper Arnholtz, Dragzoon W.R.E, Elijah Silvercross, Gray, Jon Creighton, and Sevaren Serberous. Thank you very much.